Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chasing a Murder. And today we are continuing at part 185 of Life Beyond the Grave, and that's covering the Vallow and Chad Daybell story, the Doomsday Serial Killers. Now, because this series is so huge, I'll have to do just audio sometimes in order to start getting this thing moving forward. We're in the timeline of September 2019. Lori Vallow is still quite upset about the fact that Kay Woodcock inherited her husband, or her murder husband, $1 million life insurance policy. It was nearly immediately after that Lori had actually set her eye on a mission, and that mission took her to Idaho and also would deem several people in her family dark zombies. So right now she has said that Kay Woodcock was taken over by a demon named Rhonda. Now, Melanie Gibb did an interview with East Idaho News' Nate Eaton, where she cautiously shared information about some of this part of this timeline, about Charles' insurance, and the fact that Kay was now Rhonda.
Talked about how when Charles dies, I'm going to get $1 million.
I don't know if she was 100% sure because she thought maybe possibly it could have been switched from her to Kay. So she wasn't sure if she was really going to get it or not.
But it was something she was thinking about and talking about.
Yeah, she didn't know about it.
And then when she found out it had been switched to Kay, what was that conversation like?
Well, she wasn't overjoyed about it. And she's like, well, Kay has the money now. But she also believed that Kay was a zombie as well. So she just believed that they were all against her. That was her belief system. As time passed, she's like, I'll get something from, when a spouse dies, you get Medicare, I think. Something like that.
Some sort of benefit.
Yeah, and he was a bit older than her, so she knew that she could get something still, so that she wasn't completely left without anything.
And she brought that up, that she would get money.
Yeah, because I was like, what are you going to do? How are you going to take, the typical things that you talk about when people pass away, like how are you going to provide for yourself?
We heard that she was also getting money as a single mom, money from Tylee and JJ because JJ had disabilities.
So I know Tylee received money from her father's death. And yeah, I think so. I think JJ did too. I don't remember talking about that too often.
We figured it out, and it was around $6,000 a month, tax-free, that she got between the three.
Yeah, I think she mentioned something like she could get that much amount. Something sounds familiar.
What was your thought when you heard all of this talk about zombies?
I did question it. I mean, all of us did. I mean, I sat and talked to Alex about that a few weeks before he passed away. I'm like, I'm not too sure about this zombie thing. He goes, I 100% believe it.
So Melanie Gibbs skipping ahead here a little bit for us, but here's Melanie Gibbs' version of Lori talking about the financials during this time when her kids are buried in Chad's backyard. So there's something I was always wondering. Kay was very close to Charles, and whether or not Charles ever confided in with Kay about his doubts of Lori being able to take care of JJ. Now remember, Kay does not know that her grandson is gone. And Lori is calling the school, emailing the school, withdrawing JJ from school. So it's important to understand that JJ had only been enrolled in Kennedy for about 3 weeks. What I had learned is when Charles was alive, he often directed Lori on what she needed to do for JJ, even expressing concerns about her ability to care for him. He would remind Lori that she was JJ's mother, that he loved her. And after Charles was gone, well, Lori was solely responsible for JJ's care and was making her own decisions on what JJ needed. And Lori went wild with it because we did learn that September 24, 2019, Lori emailed Kennedy Elementary initially stating that she was removing JJ because he was moving to Louisiana. Then he was also going to be homeschooled. Now, we did learn later that school officials reached out to Lori to inform her that once JJ got to Louisiana with his grandparents, his records could be sent to the area so that he could be put into public school or whichever school he wanted to attend in Louisiana. Again, remember that's when Lori brought up homeschooling. So we know that Lori really had no intentions whatsoever of looking out for JJ, his future, his schooling, much less homeschooling him. Now, something else I wanted to mention was the fact that Colby said things started to change dramatically between he and his sister right after September 24th, today, Tylee's birthday.
Do you know approximately how long you continued to receive text messages from her after you felt like it changed?
A little bit after her birthday, on the 24th, September 24th.
Okay. Did you continue to receive money from her Venmo after September of 2019?
I think so.
Now, a lot of people have talked about the fact that Colby Ryan's last name matches that of Joseph Ryan, who is not his father. And a lot of people wonder why that is, especially since there's no proof that Joseph Ryan ever adopted Colby. Well, my idea is this: after you know Lori and the way that she likes to use Ryan as a way to hide away from people, her true identity, especially when she was Lori Vallow, that most likely Colby Ryan was Colby Ryan in order to hide Colby away from his real father. That's what I've always thought. And the fact that Colby never understood why he carried that name, especially with the fact that, Colby admitted that Joseph Ryan wasn't his favorite person. His true father was William LaGoya. I've reached out to William a few times, and I hope that one day maybe he'll try to establish a relationship with his son. But it seems that many people that were in Lori's life want to be far away as possible from her. Now, to understand what all of these people surrounding Lori are going through, you have to first understand her motives. And her motive is, once you do not support what she wants, you are put onto this list. And on this list, she now has Chad Daybell helping her rank people she considers her enemy, including her own flesh and blood, ranking them dark, eventually zombies, people that are taken over by demons. And one of the investigators explained how when he first started investigating this, how these rankings look more like death percentages than anything else. Now, I just want to say that I believe that Doug Hart was probably one of the most intelligent investigators on this case, who was able to put together this puzzle that a lot of people just didn't seem to get. The sad part is, if it wasn't just adults, it was children. And it wasn't just Lori Vallow's children. It was Melani Boudreaux's children, Brandon Boudreaux's children. They were now being ranked by this evil woman with evil intentions. And I don't really understand how much Melani Boudreaux understood what these rankings meant. A lot of people didn't until later, where they believe that Melani Boudreaux most likely understood these rankings very well. And her moving to live next to her Aunt Lori later, which we'll talk about, it's going to happen shortly, just suggests how close Melanie was with Lori and how supportive she was to Lori and these teachings. So again, if you're new, it's best if you start from the beginning of the series and learn the characters. But Melani Boudreaux is Lori Vallow's niece, who was married to Brandon Boudreaux. So they were often texting back and forth, Lori and Chad, about the behaviors of several children. This includes Tylee, JJ, and one of Melani Boudreaux's, or several of Melani Boudreaux's children.
Could you read slide 31 into the record, please?
Line 2120, text from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. How are things at home? Line 2119, from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. She's fine. Need you to check JJ. She said he was calm and he watched movies all day, which he would never do. Line 2118, from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Missing you.
Proceeding on to the text communication on slide 32. Could you read those into the record?
Line 2117, from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Missing you too. It is still JJ. I'm told she is lying about him being calm and watching movies. Line 2101, text from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Mel knew. She called me. She felt the real Brighton last night and knew she was different. She was told I didn't want to tell her. She is taking well and knowing it is part of a big plan. She is amazing, although I'm still pretty upset over it. I love you. Trying to hang in there, missing your kisses.
Now, between slide 31 and 32, why did you include these particular text communications in addition to checking on JJ and Tylee? Why did you include these two slides?
I included them because of the references to JJ and then the other reference to Brighton, who is another of Melani Boudreaux's children. Based on the content of that text, appears that Brighton has now been designated as being possessed by an entity.
And you say Melani Boudreaux's children, was that child's father Brandon Boudreaux?
Correct.
Now, it also says there's the word big plan. In context of the defendant's communications, what did big plan refer to?
It referred to those things that would take place in the future that were being planned by Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow.
Okay. Now, did you review the iCloud for discussion of a plan or future together?
Yes, there are several references which I have included in the summary presentation to plans and the future.
Okay. And that use of the word plan was used by Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell.
Correct.
Okay.
So as you can see, Melani Boudreaux it seemed to Lori, was accepting the plan by this time. And this is after Charles had passed away, shortly after, weeks after, in July of 2019. So Lori and Chad were very focused on the fact that Charles Vallow, the entity that possessed his body, Ned, gave all the money to Kay, who they refer to as a demon, Rhonda. The reason why I'm going over this again, because we've gone over it, is because we need to understand the fact that Lori is quite livid with Kay. She's seemingly out for revenge. And for what comes next in this story, they're going to focus on Brandon Boudreaux, Melani Boudreaux's ex-estranged husband at this time in September of 2019. And so when we speak of plans, their plans at first were for Tylee and JJ. Now their plans have shifted to Kay, Brandon Boudreaux, and Tammy Daybell. So I've gone through several of Julie Rowe's podcasts including number 58, temple worship, looking for clues as to where Lori and Chad get some of their ideas. At the mark about 3:10, Julie Rowe and Eric Smith do a podcast where they talk about an altar. And I want to share that with you guys.
Encourage you to study doctrine and just watch your testimony deepen. One of the doctrines I have awoken to through the study of ancient Israelite culture is temples. It started when I had the question, what is an altar and how is an altar to be used? And I was kind of amazed at what I learned about the simple little thing we call an altar in our temples. I learned that an altar in the early days of the church, in the early days of this creation, an altar was used as a place to worship and was basically synonymous with the word temple. And it was an elevated place. It could have been a high ground. It could have been a mound of dirt. They overlaid it with stones that were unhewn, meaning God created them in that fashion, not man. Anyway, there are a lot of other interesting things we can learn about temple worship. I want to share with you some very special and I find significant and very touching aspects of Israelite worship.
Pausing for a moment. So he's going to go back to the sacrifice of Abraham. And listen closely. If you know that JJ was laid next to a tree near a pond, and why did they choose this area? Well, listen to Eric Smith. Maybe there were other reasons for it.
You'll read the plains of Moreh in the King James Version, and that was not translated correctly. If you look at the Hebrew word for plain, it was actually tree. They should have said the tree of Moreh. And this is when Abraham was commanded to offer his son Isaac on an altar. He was 3 days' journey from the land of Moreh, and the whole time he's traveling with Isaac and the servants that were with him, he's thinking every day, how am I going to do this horrible thing to my son? Now you just imagine this journey and this walk for 3 days. Imagine that you're going to slaughter your son on an altar. I can't imagine the heartache he had as he walked to the plain of Moreh. But as I was just saying, it wasn't the plain of Moreh, it was the tree of Moreh. There was a well-known tree in this area, so well-known that it had a name, the tree of Moreh. This tree was on a hill that can be called the hill of Moreh or Moriah. And this is where Abraham offered Isaac, or was attempted to offer Isaac on an altar. Julie, any comments on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to give my witness of that and the truthfulness of what Eric's talking about in respect to both the hill and the location near the tree. The memories from the Book of Life that I have and the scenes that they showed me regarding the journey with Abraham and Isaac and those that went with him, as Isaac also knew that he was to be sacrificed and he went willingly, is that Isaac laid himself down on the altar after he helped build the altar with his father, who Abraham was elderly at that time and Isaac was 33. As they prepared to offer sacrifice of Isaac, that if you were to pretend that you were laying on the altar, Abraham stood off to Isaac's right side. That was also symbolic. And then the tree was behind Abraham. It was a pretty large tree, but and it looks to me like an olive tree. I don't know for sure if it was, but it looks kind of like an olive tree as far as the image in my mind. And some of the branches hung over a bit, just beyond beyond reach from where Abraham and Isaac built the altar. So that is significant. We could get into things like it was sacred ground, it was a light portal, things like that. But anyway, some interesting things they showed me about that. And then just before they offered sacrifice and did that, they knelt down by that tree together and prayed to the Lord to give them supplication and to help them through that.
I love your witness, Julie. Thank you for sharing that. When I was initially studying this word in Hebrew, I came to understand that there was a theme intended by the Hebrew authors of our scriptures to keep this theme of the tree in the scriptures. It shows up many other times in our scriptures that have, and it's been lost for whatever reason. I feel like the adversary intended for us to lose some of the sacred meaning and symbolism in trees. Let
me interject here. Sorry. The spirit. Okay, so what I just heard from the other side of the veil was a sycamore tree.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know my trees. Apparently, it was a sycamore tree.
Very interesting. Yeah. That's good to know.
I have no idea. Even anyway, sycamore. You can look that up, I guess.
Well, that is a significant. I need to think on that a little bit more. I know that Isaiah spoke of a sycamore tree, but I have to remember what that context was. This place, Moriah, is a sacred place. Like Julie said, light portals and that kind of thing. It does appear to have been a consecrated and sacred place. We find later that in that very same place where Abraham attempted to offer Isaac is where Solomon's temple was built. Later, Solomon's temple was destroyed in 587 BC by the Babylonians. This was shortly after Nephi and his family, Lehi, and their family left for the Americas. It was destroyed, and then about 70 years later, was it King Cyrus came in and had commissioned the second temple to be built, Herod's temple, which lasted for a good 500-600 years and was destroyed later. So those two temples, the first two Jewish temples, were built on that plain of Moreh, where Abraham offered or attempted to offer Isaac. I find that.
Okay, guys, so I found that interesting. If you listen closely, Eric talks about this place of sacrifice was also the place two temples were built, one of them being Solomon. Okay, now when you think about Chad Daybell, his property where it's located in Salem, we've already talked a little bit about that. That has something to do with some of these visions that he has. The fact that Abraham's son, Isaac, was supposed to be sacrificed on an area where two historical temples were once built, destroyed, built again. And understanding that Chad believed that his property was also, I believe after my research, was going to be a place where they were going to build a temple. His property and the surrounding areas also. I mean, we know that by the church just down the road, they seen this invisible building, sometimes referred to as a spiritual building. So we know that, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow had planned to build light cities there. Actually, it was Chad Daybell and Julie Rowe that were the first to hint that before Lori Vallow come along. But now Julie Rowe is out the picture. Lori has taken over. So here's something I want you guys to listen to real quick. We're going to do a clip from a documentary from the History Channel.
The Holy Land. For thousands of years, religious pilgrims of many faiths have come to this sacred city to express their devotion to God. But just outside the walls of Jerusalem lies the Valley of Hinnom, an ancient place of unholy worship, where evil deeds were performed long ago in honor of God's enemy, Satan.
In the book of Jeremiah, God reports through his prophet
that people outside Jerusalem in a place called the Valley of Hinnom are sacrificing their sons and also their daughters. And God explicitly says, I never asked you to do this satanic ritual. And expresses that he is angry that there's going to be a terrible punishment for this.
Historically speaking, in the days of the Bible, not everybody was faithful to the Lord. Satanism influenced the Israelite community. And what they would do, literally, was they create a big pit of fire, and they actually would sacrifice their firstborn male through the fire. This was performed in the Valley of Hinnom, which
Many of us who have followed this case have wondered why Tylee was treated the way that she was. We know that she was somehow sacrificed into a pit of fire. But we never can make the connection of exactly what their intentions were and why. I just wanted you guys to have just to keep this in the back of your mind as we move forward. And there are other stories that I'm still working on, and one of them includes the story of Lehi. We do know this much, that they are looking for terrestrial blessings and looking for the locations of where all of this new mission and journey will begin. It will begin to be revealed to them. And they do mention the fact that they're adding new teachings, new doctrines to what they already learned in the religion of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But they do not override or replace the original doctrine. They have special people gaining special powers. They acknowledge that the prophet of the Mormon Church is still the prophet. However, there are others that are called specifically to run the Church of the Firstborn, which would be Lori and Chad. Their plans are not only including Chad's small little property there in Salem, Idaho, but specifically to expand the Church of the Firstborn all over the world. And each of these groups will have their own specialties. Chad and Lori's group specializes in healing and music, and we'll go into details as to why. The next few series coming up, we're going to dive into some things that I think you guys are going to be interested in. Who is Raphael? And how does Raphael connect to Chad? What are the teachings that they are seeking that are outside of the main doctrine? Well, I found quite a bit. Just make sure you push like, share, say hello in the comments. Don't forget about our girls that are missing out there, people like Dulce. They need your help to bring justice for them and their families. Share their story on your social media today. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you guys soon.